Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to the African Comic Guy, and today is just another update on what's going on with James Gunn DCU. And today we actually got a huge announcement that he actually was able to cast an actor who's actually going to play Supergirl. Now, if you're unaware of what's going on in Superman Legacy, the movie that James Gunn is actually going to launch the DC universe with. He said that he's actually going to feature certain superheroes. Like certain superheroes are actually going to exist in this universe. One of them being Supergirl. Now, obviously, Supergirl is a very integral part not only of the DCU, but at the same time, but also the Justice League. Right? She's a really, really huge character. Right? And it's fun when you see her in the big screen. She's been obviously on TV in multiple shows, played by different characters. We're about to talk about that. But, we were curious. We were curious to see what direction he was going to go because we just saw Supergirl, right? In the Flash movie, right? We saw Supergirl in that movie. There was a TV show. So it's interesting to see James Gunn's mind, right? I'm trying to, because we're always trying to see where he's actually going because he's basically launching the DC universe with this movie, with Superman Legacy. So obviously he's taking his time. He's really making a point to cast actors to play the roles he wants, the way he wants them to play the role. So obviously, I think he's actually looking at not only what they've done in their past, and a lot of them are young, right? Because Superman is going to be very young. So a lot of these characters are going to be young. So he's looking at really young actors. So it's kind of fun to see where his mind is when it comes to actually looking and casting certain actors. So yeah, so we actually finally have an actress who actually plays Supergirl, and her name is Millie Alec. I don't know who Millie Alec is. She plays a really, really huge role in House of Dragons, sequel to Game of Thrones. And she's been really cool in that show on HBO Max. And I would highly recommend, if you haven't seen her, go see her. Go see her in that movie. And I think that's one of those. I think he said that was one of those pivotal roles that she got. That he always says before he even thought of looking at who would play Supergirl, or even if he would actually involve Supergirl in Superman Legacy, he liked her for that role. You know what I mean? So he obviously looked at several actors to play that role, but he already liked her to play this role. And it's actually really cool to see that he's actually now solidified that role for her. And I can't wait to see what she does. But, I just wanted to touch base on Supergirl just a little bit. I don't know if you guys are fans of Supergirl. I am a huge fan of Supergirl. She's an integral part of the DC universe, huge, and the Justice League. And it's really fun to see her again come back to the big screen. So we're going to talk about her just for a little bit. Let's just have fun with Supergirl. For those of you who don't know who Supergirl is in relation to Superman, Supergirl is actually Superman's cousin, right? They come from the same planet, Krypton, and they basically got to Earth the same way and with the same reason, right? Obviously, if you're familiar with Superman, you know that Superman came from Krypton and he was sent here by his parents when his planet basically exploded or imploded, right? And they took necessary precautions and arrangements to make sure that the newborn baby was basically going to survive. So they sent Superman in a pod to Earth. Now, Superman had relatives, right? So Superman's father basically had a brother, and they had a daughter. And again, these are parents who are actual scientists, right? They're all scientists. And they had a daughter who was a teenager at the time called Kara, right? Kara Zor-El. And they as well foresaw this calamity and decided to do the same exact thing as Superman's parents did, send Kara to Earth. But what happened on the way here, Superman got here first, but they were actually supposed to get here at the same time. Those two rockets took off at the same time. But in Kara's journey here, she encountered issues. Right, like meteors, all these things delayed her pod while she was basically she was asleep essentially this entire time. She wasn't aware of what's going on. By the time she got to Earth, she realized that her cousin, whom she left as a baby, is now a grown man and is a superhero. So you can imagine what's going on with her, right? It's really, really hard to fathom this because the last time she saw him, she was, you know what I mean? She was older, which means Clark or Superman would have to be look up to her. And now she's here as a teenager on Earth looking up to this kid in her eyes who's now a Superman and a superhero. So it's going to be really fun to see how James Gunn tells this story. But again, I like Supergirl, and Supergirl again has been played by different actors in different roles in the big screen and TV. 1984, there was a huge movie, Supergirl, played by Helen Slater. Now that movie, obviously, because the 80s, if you know anything about the 80s, you know that Christopher Reeves was playing Superman. So the studio decided to give her her own movie because, again, Supergirl is very popular, especially with comic fans, right? And she's a really huge integral part of the DC universe, especially with the Justice League. So it's really cool that they actually gave her a standalone movie. And the movie was okay. It was okay. It didn't really do it didn't really perform as they expected it to. I always feel like it was before its time. I think if they had waited a little bit, really, really developed her character, because again, Helen Slater was a little bit older. She didn't really look like a teenager. I think they probably would have done better. But again, you can't fault them for trying to strike gold because they did with Christopher Reeves as Superman, you know. And after that, she's also been played by certain characters. Now, if you're familiar with Smallville, there was actually a Supergirl in Smallville. And she was played by an actress called Lara Vandervoort. And she was there for, I think, a few seasons, if I'm not wrong. And she never really took off. You know what I mean? But she was Supergirl. You know, so it was really fun. I'm a huge fan of Smallville. Huge fan of Smallville, and a lot of fans of Smallville liked her in that role, even though we didn't really get to see her or explore that role. You know, Smallville was really, it was one of those, it was almost like a really cool show that was really focused on them as kids, right? They're in high school. You know, you see them in middle school, in high school, and then now they're in college, end up with jobs, which you know what I mean? So they really didn't really develop or spend a lot of time pursuing this character. So she didn't really become big in this role. But again, it's nice to see that she actually played this role, and she actually played it well. And then obviously after Smallville, years later, we had a Supergirl standalone TV show, which in the beginning I really had a lot of hope for. I really did, because coming off this is in the Arrowverse. So with the Arrow being extremely popular, with the Flash being extremely popular, and these shows initially, especially the first 5 seasons, they were well written, incredible casting, and incredible directing. It was outstanding. These shows were actually among the top shows on TV. There's five initial seasons, you know. So obviously, the fact that we were going to get Supergirl, you know, I was excited about that because I figured, you know, they're going to carry on this good writing, this, you know what I mean. And unfortunately, it's one of those shows that you either like it or you honestly don't. I don't think it's very hard to be in the middle with this show. And to me, I didn't really like it because the writing was just very dull. You know what I mean? It was difficult to believe that she was Supergirl. It really was. And it's all based on writing. I don't think they missed with casting. I think that Melissa Benoit, who plays Supergirl in the Supergirl TV show, is a really good actress. And she does look like Supergirl. And I loved the costume, right, that they had her wear as Supergirl. And it was really fun to see. But again, they failed with the story, and a lot of fans, especially a lot of fans, got really bored with the story because you never really believed in the story. You never really fell in love with the story. And unfortunately for the show, it really left a bad taste in our mouths as fans, right? And it's sad to say because I think they really had an opportunity to really do a good show. And maybe hopefully one day James Gunn figures out a way to do it well. But yeah, so and then following her came Sasha Cal. And Sasha Cal, I remember the hype. I remember when she was, because I remember seeing the video when she received the news that she was going to play Supergirl. And I remember how emotional she was because she was going to play Supergirl in The Flash. And again, this movie came, it was hyped to the tenth, whatever degree you want to use. And the way this movie disappointed, it's hard to put in words. And the way that they destroyed her, because the CGI was atrocious. Like if you watch Man of Steel and you watch the CGI in Man of Steel and you watch The Flash and you watch the CGI and you're like, you're clearly seeing a figure that is not Supergirl. And the dialogue, the fight scenes, all these things didn't really make sense. And it was horrible and really sad to see because we were so excited to see not only how she was going to play, the fact that we were actually going to get introduced to Supergirl again in the big screen. Do you know how big a big deal that is? And then this is what we get. So unfortunately, it did really bad. And I'm sorry for her. She will not continue to play Supergirl. So anyway, so we come to Millie Alcock, who's going to play Supergirl in the Superman Legacy. And we're excited to see that. I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see what James Gunn is going to do with Supergirl. So anyway, that's just an update on what's going on with Supergirl. And just, if you didn't know, Zoe Saldana, she's actually said she would love to play a character in the DC universe. I don't know. Maybe we get a chance to see one day. Come on, James Gunn. Let's get Zoe. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. I am the African Comic Guy. Can't wait to see you guys on the next African Comic. See you later, guys. Peace.